So, folks, it seems like Democrats might actually, despite all conceivable uh, tendencies deep coded within their bodies, might actually be doing something. And I know that that's kind of like insane because since when have Democrats ever done anything in our lifetimes? And well, the answer is, well, today we got a lot, actually. We got a lot more than I was expecting today. Remember yesterday, I talked a little bit about Cory Booker doing kind of his filibuster in the Senate. And my assumption, which turned out to be wrong, was that Cory Booker was going to go kind of through the late night and then yield the floor in the morning. And that turned out to be incredibly incorrect. And instead, he actually broke the record for longest speech on the Senate floor, beating Strom Thurmond. Cory Booker talked for 25 hours. And not only did Cory Booker talk for 25 hours, by talking for that long, he blocked an entire day of confirmation hearings by Republicans. So he not only did he beat one of the most racist senators of all time, in terms of like record holding in the Senate, which is, that's not nothing. But he also prevented the Senate, any action within the Senate. They prevented people from being confirmed, prevented different, Trump shit. And that's great. And in fact, I want to see so much more of that. There are 47 senators that are Democrats. If all 47 of them started applying themselves like this, we could literally just stop the Senate in its tracks. Hell, if even like 12 of them applied themselves like this, we could stop the Senate for almost 2 weeks, And that's kind of where we're at. We should be doing that. They should have a lineup, 8-hour shifts. I think that runs into some like procedural issues when it comes to like yielding the floor. Like it opens it up for possibly like people. I think you can like yield for questions, but if you yield your time, then I believe things can proceed. I'm not entirely sure. Not up on my Robert's rules, but I believe that's how it works. I mean, like it's no easy feat for sure, the Colonel Flanders, but like I think that the Senate, let me put it this way. I think that what Cory Booker is doing, and from the news that came out throughout today, it seems part of a coordinated effort by Senate Democrats.
Also rejecting nominations, ATM.
Yes, and I'm going to get to that, Andrew S. Because Senator Adam Schiff announced today, breaking, I'm placing a hold on President Trump's nominee for U.S. Attorney in D.C. For the past few weeks, Ed Martin has been a one-man wrecking ball, threatening political opponents, firing public servants, and using his office to chill free speech. His nomination must be blocked. And he put out a statement about this, so let's just take a look at it. Today, Senator Adam Schiff, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, announced that he would be placing a hold on the nomination of Edward Martin to be U.S. Attorney of the District of Columbia, citing Mr. Martin's troubling conduct in the months as interim U.S. Attorney in the same role. Borfboo, thank you for the $5 super chat. It's not much, but put this toward y'all's future wedding plans. Thank you. I appreciate that, Borfboo. I agree, and thank you very much. And I will, don't you worry. In every way he can, Ed Martin has demolished the firewalls between the White House and his own office within the Department of Justice. Confirming him to serve permanently in the role he has already abused in his interim capacity would cross the prosecutorial Rubicon that every single senator would come to regret, and that would threaten the rights of Americans from all walks of life. For the past 9 weeks, Ed Martin has consistently undermined the independence and abused the power of the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C., openly threatening and intimidating political opponents, dismissing charges against his own clients, firing public servants for their roles in legitimate investigations, and using his office as a cudgel to chill dissent and free speech. No one embodies Donald Trump's personal weaponization of the Justice Department more than Ed Martin. He is unfit to serve as a lawyer, let alone one with the resources and cover from the Senate to further twist the power of the law and law enforcement to go after Americans who stand up for the rule of law and for our democracy. With all the power I am afforded as a United States Senator, I intend to place a hold on his nomination and block attempts to jam through his appointment at every stage. This is exactly, when we're talking about Democrats in the minority in the Senate using their power, this is exactly what we're talking about. We need to throw a wrench into the works at every conceivable motion and juncture. Emily Sweetness, thank you for being a member on YouTube. It is a big deal because thus far we have seen remarkably little pushback. And I have to say, like, this is what we've been asking for. This is what, like, Indivisible has been pushing for. If you called your senators and asked them to, like, do something, this is what their power allows them to do. It allows them to bring business to a halt. And that is what we basically need to do in the Senate. We need to deny Donald Trump all the levers of power that he currently possesses. Okay? That's where we're at. But that's not all either, okay? So another senator is stepping up as well, and this one is one that I am not a huge fan of. But you know what? I'll take it. This is Senator Ruben Gallego, and he is taking a stand for the VA. Specifically, he is taking a stand for the VA to stop the firing of 83,000 VA workers. And this is the kind of stuff we need to see. This is the kind of stuff that needs to happen.
I have to give credit to anybody willing to do a filibuster by actually speaking on the floor for an extended period of time. Well, anybody not named Strom Thurmond, because Strom Thurmond sucks. BWA.
Strom Thurmond does suck, and still sucks to this day, even though he's dead. And a BWA to you as well. Very knifey duck. Turning it up for all of us. Hello, Brianna Arabia. And but here's Senator Gallego making a statement here about the VA.
83,000 veteran VA employees getting cut means 83,000 opportunities that we're going to miss, probably helping some of these veterans. And I can't live with that on my conscience, knowing that there are men and women that are probably not going to get their phone calls answered when they're at a veteran crisis hotline, or they're going to have to wait a little longer to get that surgery, or they're not going to be able to feel comfortable going to the VA. So I can't vote for any nominee, and not only can I not vote for any more nominees, I need to do everything I can to hold as many nominees as possible until we stop this, until I can prove to the veterans that I serve with, the veterans that I represent now in Arizona, all over the country, that this is not going to hurt them. This is not going to affect them, because I can't prove that. 83,000.
So basically what he's now committing to is actually, like, I think even more important than what Adam Schiff or Senator Booker did. Because what he's saying is he is going to hold up every nominee until those workers are not fired anymore. Which is cool as hell. That is some good shit. Honestly, we need more solidarity. We need, like, every single Dem senator to come up with their hobby, like, concession from the conservative majority, and we need them to hold the line and, like, start holding things up. Hold it up until you get that concession, and then all the other folks around you are going to keep holding up until they get their concessions. That's what we need here. Okay? And here is Ruben Gallego kind of explaining more about what he's doing here.
Hey, it's Ruben Gallego on my way to the VA committee. This morning I announced that I'm putting a hold on all political appointees at the VA. Why? Well, I'm concerned that they're trying to cut 88,000 employees from the VA. There's no plan of what this means, how this is going to affect services. You know, we actually need to be hiring more people, not firing people. I've talked to a lot of veterans in Arizona. They're telling me that they're worried. Just a couple days ago, they told the VA, the Phoenix VA hospital, that they have to get rid of 15% of their employees by June. There's no way they're going to be able to cut that many people and it not affect veteran services. So I'm going to try to do everything I can to stop that. And this is the way to do it. Hey,
I mean, basically what you are seeing here are people in the Senate, people in the House. I mean, so far all of these are senators, but you know, people in the House are also doing good work. But what you're seeing are politicians with ambition moving in the direction the political winds are blowing. So what I mean by that is that Ruben Gallego is kind of a piece of shit for a Democrat. Like, he's not a good dude. You know, he's in big with like crypto. He's friends with a lot of the billionaires that back Donald Trump. He's not a great dude. He supports bad policy. He's one of those guys who talks constantly about doing bipartisanship with Republicans on things that screw over his constituents. But what you are going to be seeing is you're going to be seeing kind of shitty senators like Ruben Gallego move in the direction the political wind is blowing by making these kinds of stands, because they know that by making these stands, people are going to like them more. It is at its base what politics is about, you know? So he's like a Democrat. He is a Democrat. He's just not like a good Democrat. There are remarkably few of those. But understand, like, when we're talking about politics, guys, we're not talking about people you need to worship. We're not talking about people you need to like put up on pedestals. You need to be viewing this from like a realpolitik, like the actual pragmatism of like politics. Okay? So what he's doing indicates how much people are pushing, how much people in his district are calling him, how much people are pushing on the Democratic establishment. He would not be doing this if he wasn't feeling pressure. And basically, they also understand that this is the prime moment in politics where they either sink or swim. You know, you either go in the direction the wind is blowing, or your constituents are going to abandon you and like go with some more, you know, progressive challenger. That's the direction the winds are blowing here. So what they're doing here is pure selfish politics. They are trying to save their own asses in upcoming elections. But that's good when we're talking about opposing fascism. We need them to do these maneuvers. We need them to throw a wrench in the works, because that is how we build up enough political capital and power to stop them. You know, that's where we're at. Like, we're going to see a lot more shitty folks. Like, Cory Booker is not a great senator, but he just spoke on the floor of the Senate for 25 hours because he is a guy who has a lot of ambition. That is a man who wants to run for president someday. That's why he does it, because he knows the entire country is going to be watching him. Okay? That's what ambition does. That's what self-interested Dem politicians need to be doing. And the fact that we're now, after like 2.5 months, seeing this happen is really, really good. It's been too long, and it has been too little up until this point. But it's good that we're seeing it now. Okay? This is good for now, but will it be a long-term solution? I know we have to keep holding them accountable. Well, the long-term solution is we keep building our protest movement month after month until the midterms. And then hopefully by the time midterms start rolling around, they get scared enough that everyone is now in line with opposing the fascists in Washington, D.C. That's kind of like the entire premise of what we're doing here, right? It's building up power step by step until we can bring this whole motherfucker down. Also, let me be perfectly clear. If Cory Booker runs for president, if there were any other options available to us, go with those options. Okay. That being said, we are going to watch the end of his speech on the floor. So let's take a look. It just ended a little while ago.
Yes, yes, yes. You and I both know that in a bipartisan way we created some of these programs principally to keep America safe. Many of us remember that dramatic hearing where Trump's Secretary of Defense, James Mattis, sat before the American people when they were discussing the budgets for USAID and the State Department. And John Mattis knew the power of those programs to keep us safe. You mentioned infectious diseases. Well, we live in a world where an infectious disease anywhere is a threat to public health everywhere. So pulling our scientists out of the fight against Ebola, pulling our scientists out of drug-resistant tuberculosis fights, it makes no sense.
And let me be perfectly clear as well, like, he did really good. This was a really good political maneuver. Throughout the night, he was reading letters from constituents who had written about their worries and their fears and what they wanted him to do and what they wanted from this administration, how they needed help. And like, he kept a good focus throughout this entire thing, you know?
And then, in terms of our safety, he just simply said,
Oh yeah, Paulie has his cracker. The midterms are just going to be the next major catalyst. And like, well, let me be clear. The next major thing on the political radar is the can that Chuck Schumer kicked down the road. Okay. And so we're gonna have to really mobilize for that in like September. And then after that, it's going to be mobilizing for the midterms. Those are kind of the two big catalysts coming up. Did he beat Strom Thurmond's record? Yes, he did. Those are the two big catalysts. But like, I don't want any single one of you to think like, oh, well, yeah, after the midterms, everything will be fine. No, we have to keep fighting until they are gone. You know? And honestly, here, you guys want to hear the real secret? Once you are aware of the fundamental problems besetting this country, there is no way to escape. You've already been trapped by the info hazard. Okay? You can't escape from it. The fight will never end. You will continue fighting until you die. Sorry, I have foisted this curse upon all of you. All right?
If you cut these programs, buy me more bullets, because our fight's to spread democracy. There are nations in Africa, for example, where the Chinese are trying to influence a different way of life. That's why
25 hours deep, Cory
African
Booker is
countries
still
now
a
won't
really good
criticize
speaker.
China for things that the rest of the world say are bad because they owe them so much debt, they're so engaged, they're so overplaying the fact. Chris Coons said something, I think it was Chris Coons said something painful earlier about Myanmar. This horrific thing. America, the most generous country on the planet, when there's a crisis, we lead the rest. I've sat in meetings in a bipartisan way with ambassadors from other countries where we had the moral authority to tell them, you're not doing enough. And in the Myanmar crisis right now, as Chris Coons said, who's standing there? Not Americans. We don't have the...
I'm sorry. YouTube captions? Are you bleeping out Chris Coons' name? It's all right. All right.
Coons said, who's standing there? Not Americans. We don't have the capacity anymore to help in a horrific crisis like that, but the Chinese government's there. Again, it's what defines us. I keep saying this.
No, his name isn't a slur. It's spelled K-U-N-Z.
It's not a left-right moment. This is a moral moment, and we tell our truth with what we do with our resources. And here's the thing. When you poll people and ask them how much money you spend on USAID, they say, oh, it must be 10% of the American budget. It must be 5% of the American budget. It's around 1% or less. A penny of what tax dollars you send down to Washington goes to help us make sure that around the globe we're countering the hard power of some countries with the power of our light and our soft power. We have been the envy of the world, where people see and know how...
Yes, I understand. I understand what the slur is, guys. You don't have to explain the slur to me. Please stop.
special America is, because we live the value of every major religion, that we're going to love our neighbors, we're going to be there for you in your times of need. And we all know, with a terrorist group from far away to the most horrific attack, that in a lot of these countries, terrorist groups are trying to counter the democratic governments there. Look in the Sahel region. Look what's happening. When I was in Nigeria, I was shocked to say what they're talking about, instabilities in the north, the threats of terrorism in the north. I'm going to go for 7 more minutes and stop, but I want to use these last 7 minutes to return one more time to the people of my state and actually other states
God, his eyes
who
must be
demanded
tired.
we do things different, who asked for help. Before I do, I just want to thank Mike Lee today. He's my partner in antitrust, a specialty of my friend Amy Klobuchar. And I don't know if you got my text, but you got it, where I said to you, I'm kind of going to the floor to hold it for as long as I can. And I may not make our first subcommittee together on antitrust, where we have a lot of common ground. So I'm sorry I missed it today. I know you'll fill me in, but I know my friend filled in. Thank you. So I want to close back where we started, about us, about why I'm here.
Yeah, most of the people in this Senate are gross. You know, like, most of them are bad people. I don't like them. But, like, I don't know, if you're going to work together on antitrust shit, I guess that's fine. It's not the worst thing Amy Klobuchar has done. Mike Lee sucks, though.
I believe that there is an urgent crisis in our country that we are not talking about. It's not a left-right crisis, it's a right-wrong crisis. It's a moral moment, and again, in America, that's going to define our character, about who we are and what we stand for. There's a threat to the bedrock commitments we've made to each other as a country. People are threatening that bedrock commitment of Social Security. They're calling it a Ponzi scheme. They're making up absolute lies about it. When I read American after American who said that that is their lifeline, they told stories that if they don't get their Social Security payment, or they get caught up because nobody's answering their calls, if the rural Social Security office, I read states, red and blue, where they're closing Social Security offices, if I now have to drive not 100 miles, but 150 miles at 93 years old, it doesn't quite make sense. One of my colleagues stood up here and said, that's already cutting benefits if you can't access the folks.
True. Creamy Hamster, thank you for the 3.
I stood here because there's a threat to these bedrock commitments. The bedrock commitment we've made in healthcare in this country. We won the defense of the Affordable Care Act, but my colleagues know when you start talking about Medicaid, that's not 20+ million Americans. It's 70, 80, 90 million Americans. It's our elders in nursing homes. It's our children with disabilities. It's our moms giving birth that are still giving birth in the country with about the highest maternal mortality rates in the industrial world. It's a moral moment. Who do we stand for? Like, Schumer shocked me when he said they're going to use some kind of budget gimmick to push this through. He shocked me, Chuck. I thought this was going to come down to the parliamentarian, but it doesn't sound like it. Now it's just going to get done. With the math, and I read from Manhattan Institute criticized it on the right. AEI criticized it on the right. They said, what are you doing? What are you doing, America?
Dog, he's calling out Chuck Schumer in the Senate.
Trillions and trillions of dollars in debt that our children and our children's children are going to have to pay for, passing the bucks that will grow. Are you doing that to help people get more access to health care, more access to retirement security, more access?
I need you guys to understand this guy is a liberal. Like, he's Libby, right? But he's a savvy politician. And so, yeah, he is talking about, like, being friends with Republicans. Because you know what? You know one of the dirty secrets of Washington? They all hang out together. You know? They don't go hang out in their clubhouses with just Democrats. They all hang out together. But, and yes, he is filtering a lot through the lens of capital, because he's a liberal, you know? But he knows where the political winds are blowing, folks. That's why he stands in the Senate, points at Chuck Schumer, and basically is like, you fucked us, Chuck. Not in private, in public. Like, he understands the political moment, and he knows that Chuck Schumer is basically a dead man walking in politics. So what he's doing right now is savvy as hell.
To the things we believe in, big ideas like universal childcare, paid family leave. No, we're doing that in order to renew the tax cuts that I read conservative budget folks, moderate budget folks, all across the spectrum who said it will blow up our deficit.
Yeah, this is some
And the
real.
benefits of
This
those-
is some really like Jimmy Stewart in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington vibes, and like, Dog knows it. Like Cory Booker knows it. He knows he's nailing this thing. 25 hours in, he's genuinely doing it. He broke the record of a unrepentant racist. He's talking the talk. He's calling out Chuck Schumer. And it's quite interesting. Jack, a good portion of your chat doesn't know the difference between lib and left. Granted, there's an overlap. There is an overlap. And I guess it's worth pointing out, a liberal is someone who believes basically in the inherent goodness of capitalism as long as it has the appropriate restraints. That is essentially liberalism in a nutshell, as it is relevant to our current political system. You know, it's basically the idea that like egalitarian democracy is good. Democracy like should spread across the globe. And capitalism in that democracy is the best of all possible worlds. And the argument is essentially, yeah. You don't want like laissez-faire capitalism, but you want like a New Deal capitalism. Essentially, you want constraints on capital. But the failure of liberalism is that those ideas may work for a time, but capital always accrues enough power, enough wealth in order to start undoing those shackles, to start picking the locks placed upon it. And ultimately what ends up happening is exactly what we've seen for like the last 70 years, as different, protections for the American public have been undone. And what we have now seen, especially since like the 90s, it was kind of implemented or introduced by Reagan, is neoliberalism. And that is the idea that actually capitalism is pretty good and it would work even better without all that regulation. And earlier in this speech, I don't know how many of you watched a bunch of it, but Cory Booker talks about abundance. And if you've been paying attention to recent political trends, you will know that that invocation of abundance is basically this reference to what Ezra Klein and a lot of other folks on the left are rebranding neoliberalism. This idea of like, well, no. Actually, deregulation is good in these specific circumstances. And if we just deregulate those, capitalism will work perfectly. And yeah, it's just another vehicle to be co-opted by capital that is far stronger now than it was under the New Deal, you know? And so Cory Booker is a liberal. He's one of those abundance liberals. That might be one of the things you start hearing more about going forward. Abundance theory is literally just neoliberalism. It is, but it's rebranded. It's kind of like how, CRT got rebranded as, like critical race theory became like woke, and woke became DEI, and like, it all rhymes, Cory is a fair weather ally in that he's never been an ally when we need it. True. I would argue that in this unique circumstance, he is an ally that we need. We need more members of the Senate to be obstructing Senate proceedings like Cory Booker did today. You know, that is good. It is a flex of power. And we are going to need that to oppose the fascists. But I want, as we have critical support for Cory Booker, I want all of you to be on the same page that ultimately this is not the guy, you know? But this is a good sign of where even kind of shitty liberals like Cory Booker are. If even a kind of shitty liberal like Cory Booker can do this act, that is an indicator that our pressure is working. Does that all make sense, folks? Does that all make sense? I hope it does. I hope I'm explaining myself well enough. You fight with the army you have, not the one you want. True. True, true, true. Thank you for the 100 biddies, creamy hamster. Yes, exactly, fighting Hobbit. Like, that's fightin' Hobbit. There we go. That's the point I've been trying to make. That the political wind has shifted, and that whatever, you know, whatever Chuck Schumer was doing to get everyone to hold in line, that is no longer holding. They are breaking. We've had 3 or 4 different senators today break from Chuck Schumer and start actually showing some spine to fight. You know, Adam Schiff holding up nominees. We've got Ruben Gallego, of all people, an even shittier guy than Cory Booker, pledging to deny all nominees until VA cuts are undone. So, like, this is something, folks. This is kind of shitty centrist Dems reading the wind accurately and breaking from the party leadership. And that is a really important step that needed to happen.
Those tax cuts, not all, let's not use hyperbole, but most will go.
Don't buy that because Chuck Schumer was part of the filibuster. I don't know. In these closing remarks, he literally pointed at Chuck Schumer and basically said, "You fucked us, Chuck. You fucked us over. You fucked the Senate. You fucked the American people." Like, I don't know. Maybe that's being done with Chuck Schumer's blessing, but either way, it is in opposition to Chuck Schumer's public-facing positions.
Go to the richest people in our country, who I promise you, I celebrate people who've brought their ingenuity and their expertise and their grit and their tireless work, who've built wealth in this country. Should not be us versus them, but I'm telling you that those folks do not need another tax cut. And the corporations who came here, you all remembered, said we would like a 25% rate. The people I read said that when we kicked it to 21, not even what they were asking for from 35, it exploded. One of the main reasons it exploded our debt. And we read from conservative groups who just said all these promises that we would grow our way out of our deficit, they didn't materialize. All the promises that were made. Trump, for those who don't remember or weren't here when I read it, was going around telling folks that, oh, my tariffs, this is 2017, my tariffs, the money that I get, that will be what we could pay down the debt. The math that they did was that would account for about 1/750th of the debt at that time. But he used that money to try to compensate the farmers that he was hurting with his tariffs. This is a moral moment, and people are getting hurt, and people are afraid because of the threats to Medicaid cuts. There were people writing in and said $880 billion would devastate me, but even small cuts to services, my whole family, fragile architecture of our finances, if you just pull out the transportation money that my disabled child uses, that will crumble my financial world. And so when you talk about the bigger cuts, we know the math. Many states who expanded Medicare have a trigger that if it goes below 90%, all the Medicare expansion goes off in that state and millions of Americans will be hurt. That's not right, guys. That's not right. And so this is the choices we have before us. Our veterans and the VA. I'm mad at you now. You made me get very emotional with your story. We read John McCain's story. We read the stories of the poems of the unknown soldier looking over us and saying, what are you doing to the Gold Star families? What are you doing to the veterans? Are you living up to your promises that you made? Well, right now, with the cuts of tens of thousands, over 80,000 veterans who work for the VA, but even more because about 20% or so of all federal workers are veterans. And we read stories from veterans in America who are shaken by what's happening, who are losing their jobs but yet all they want to do is serve. They're not what they're being called. They're not leeches. They're not criminals. They shouldn't be degraded for wanting to continue to serve their nation. This is what we're talking about, our veterans, our seniors, our health care, our financial security going forward. I asked the question to all those people who voted for Donald Trump, who believed in him that he would lower your grocery prices. I asked you, look at your financial self. Are you better off than you were 72 years ago financially? Well, the answer for most people who believed in him is no, because he didn't set out to do anything to lower prices. He set out to rename the Gulf of Mexico, to threaten Canada, to say I'm going to take over Greenland. He's done a lot of things, 140 executive orders. Many of them actually drive up your costs, make it more expensive to enroll in the ACA, reduce a lot of the tax credits there. He's increased your costs. He's taxed your bedrock services. Stock market tumbles, your 401k accounts are less. Inflation is up. Consumer confidence is down. This is what the voices we brought into this chamber, the voices of our constituents, red states, blue states, the voices of Democrats and Republicans, Republican governors, Democratic governors. We brought all the people that are saying, no, this is a moral moment, not left or right, right or wrong. And so I've tried over the last 25 hours and 1 minute to center the conversation back on what will we do of good conscience. People who are saying, I served this country, I risked my life, shouldn't be able to keep my job. People who are saying, this country once made itself the envy of the world because we invested in high-quality education for every child. I don't like what's going on at the end of the Department of Education. People who are saying, I worked harder than I ever have, but the prices on everything in my life are getting higher. People who are saying that the America I learned about in school, the one where people's rights are protected, the people are saying that why are we yet again going through another healthcare battle that threatens millions of people, the people are saying that I'm worried about the financial security and the future of my country, the voices of folks. And so I end by saying simply this, where I started was John Lewis. I don't know how to solve this. I don't know how to stop us from going down this road. Chuck Schumer's now told me that they're greasing the skids to do these things. I'm sorry, but I know who does have the power. The people of the United States of America. The power of the people is greater than the people in power. It is time to heed the words of the man I began this whole thing with, John Lewis. I beg folks to take his example of his early days where he made himself.
Man, it doesn't really feel great when when these folks, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there, Alexis Vandam. But I want to finish this first. But thank you for the $5 super chat. Like, I totally lost my train of thought.
Self-determined to show his love for his country at a time the country didn't love him. To love this country.
Oh, now I remember. These people, it is deeply frustrating to see members who've been elected to the Senate passing the buck to the American people. You guys just need to organize more. Just go organize more. Like, man, fuck you. We elected you to do shit. And I'm glad that you're doing shit, but get your other friends to do shit. You know, there are 350,000 people signed up to protest on April 5th. We're doing our part. Get all your buddies to do yours.
So much to be such a patriot that he endured beatings savagely on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, at lunch counters, on freedom rides.
Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. I don't get this insistence on bipartisanship. One party has not played by the rules and has blatantly violated every assumed decorum and rule. Fuck them. I mean, yeah, and that's also part of kind of that liberal mentality. What they want to do is they want to appeal to more, conservatives. They want to appeal to this fictionalized conservative ideal because in the 90s, being bipartisan was viewed very positively. However, as we know, and as a lot of people who study electoral politics know, partisanship is now the way to go. You double down on what you believe is right, and people will come to you. And it is one of those things where you can tell in Congress who's left, who is on the left, i.e. a progressive, or someone who does not just want to return to the status quo or marginal improvements, by the virtue of like who talks about bipartisanship. And granted, like, he's trying to form the idea here of a mass bipartisan movement to like oust the fascists, and like that'd be great if conservatives were interested in that. And not many conservatives are. If conservatives want to join the effort to do that, they can join with liberals. They always have been able to do that. But the vast majority of conservatives are on board the Trump train, right up until it runs them over on the tracks. So the bipartisanship is a vestige of a different time in politics. The Obama years when the fever was going to break. The Clinton years when, we got to work with our Republican friends. Those same Republican friends that devoured Clinton.
He said he had to do something. He would not normalize a moment like this. He would not just go along with business as usual. He wouldn't know how to solve it. But there's one thing that he would do that I hope we all can do, that I think I did a little bit of tonight. He said for us to go out and cause some good trouble, necessary trouble, to redeem the soul of our nation. I want you to redeem the dream. Let's be bold in America, not demean and degrade Americans, not divide us against each other. Let's be bolder in America with a vision that inspires, with hope that starts with the people of the United States of America. That's how this country started. We, the people. Let's get back to the ideals that others are threatening. Let's get back to our founding documents, that those imperfect geniuses had some very special words at the end of the Declaration of Independence. It was one of the greatest in all of humanity declarations of interdependence. When our founders said we must mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. We need that.
Another thing to keep in mind is, again, a lot of these people in Washington, D.C., they all go to the same parties, they all hang out, and they all want to be buddies with each other. Almost all of them. They want to be like, oh, yeah, you're invited to the cocktail party, of course. We even got you goodie bags. They don't want to miss out on a good party. So they like having that bipartisanship because of those social ties that we talked about earlier.
Now, from all Americans, this is a moral moment. It's not left or right,
a lot
it's
of them,
right
Mr.
or wrong.
Miyagi, yeah.
Let's get in good trouble. My friend, Madam President, I yield the floor.
Someone mentioned that they had never seen pages clap before in the Senate chambers. I believe that. Pages are typically instructed not to like show any kind of emotion one way or the other. They're supposed to be like impartial little imps that deliver coffees and such. So, like, even these guys are clapping.
Madam President, Thank you to the pages. Thank you to the parliamentarian staff. Thank you to the clerks. Thank you to the doorkeepers. There are so many people that make this place special. I kept you up all night, kept you up 24 hours. I just want to say thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, for people who are big, like, political nerds, this is basically the equivalent of watching someone in football, like, catch a kickoff and then run from, like, their end zone all the way to the other end zone, you know? It's, the whole thing, you know? But very impressive, but what I find much more impressive are the way that these kind of milquetoast libs are moving to actually take a stance on what is happening in Washington. That is the more impressive thing that is happening here. Yes, it's impressive he talked for a long time. Yes, it's impressive that he broke a record. But more importantly than that, this, along with a number of other actions over the past 24 hours, seem to indicate that at least some non-insignificant part of the Senate Dems is willing to finally start fighting. And that's cool. That I like to see, because honestly, things are getting pretty scary in America. You know? Donald Trump wants to turn this entire country into a sundown town. And I, for one, am not a huge fan of that. So, what I want you all to do is to look at this and to take heart and to keep calling your senators, okay? I need you guys to keep calling. It is super important. If you have a senator that is not taking action like this, you go and you call them. 5calls.org. Okay, I'm linking it in all the chats. You call your senators and you demand action like this. You demand action in the Senate and the House. We need more elected officials taking these stands. We need more folks like Adam Schiff. We need more folks like Ruben Gallego, who's at least finally doing something, his connections to the far right notwithstanding. We need more people like Cory Booker, and we need more people like Bernie Sanders. You know, we need these people, and the way you get the current crop of senators to act like this is to berate them and bully them ceaselessly via your rights as a constituent. Okay? So that is what you have to do. You know, you're not going to be able to run for anything until 2026. Not on this national level. If you're in a red state, call to complain. If you're in a red state, it's almost even more important for you to continue putting pressure on your elected representative, because I guarantee you after today, a lot of elected Republicans are going to be shaking in their boots. And we're going to get into that, but first we're going to take a quick break because we're done with the segment, folks. Ta-da!
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.